Welcome to the Third One channel, where today we're doing analysis on the pilots of 4 different shows: iCarly, Drake and Josh, Zoey 101, and Victorious. In this comparative video, you can expect similarities and differences to be drawn, as well as some juicy analysis. I wanted to make this video to get into the mind of the writers of some of my favorite shows growing up. Let's get into it. First off, for clarity, a pilot for a series is a different term for the first episode of a show. In the pilot, we are often introduced to our main characters, the setting, and the premise of a show. The ultimate goal of a pilot is to intrigue the viewer to want to watch the next episode, and in the process inform the viewer of the scenario. So, where do we start? Let's start with how our 4 pilots introduce our characters, starting with iCarly. In the first scene of the show, we are introduced to our main character, Carly. Carly is introduced as a typical good girl, and in the first scene of the show, Carly is called into the principal's office for degrading a teacher with Photoshop posters. For this, Carly is punished with Saturday detention, and she's not happy about this as she will miss the concert she had planned to go to. We learn in the next scene that Carly is covering for her best friend Sam, who is introduced as this typical bad girl. Immediately, we have a conflict between the two friends, with Carly questioning why she must sacrifice for Sam. In scene number 3, we're introduced to Freddie, the geeky boy next door with a massive crush on the girl next door, Carly. Their relationship is immediately complicated, with Freddie saying, "I'm in love with you, and you just want to be friends, and I'm totally cool with living with that constant pain." In the same scene, we're introduced to Spencer, Carly's guardian brother, a crazy artist. In just 3 scenes, we have already been introduced to our 4 lead characters and developed an idea for what their relationship is like with the main character, Carly. As Carly interacts with each of these characters individually, we can learn a lot about Carly and almost instantly comprehend her, as we immediately gain a good understanding of who she is. We have already learned that she is loyal to the one she's close to, defending her brother in scene 1, and covering for her best friend as we learn in scene 2. In the pilot, Carly is written as a good girl, who gains her wings, a drive, a will to break from her regular regime. The episode is really about Carly protesting against the powers at her school. Let me explain. Carly's punishment for Sam's acts are to record the talent show auditions for Miss Briggs. She brings Sam along and asks Freddie to borrow his camera, but he comes along and helps anyway. In between auditions, Carly exchanged thoughts on Miss Briggs, which Freddie found really funny, so he films it. Later that day, Freddie mistakenly uploads these exchanges, and Sam and Carly go viral overnight. The next morning, Carly gives the tapes for the auditions along with her thoughts to Miss Briggs about who she thought was talented, which Miss Briggs completely dismisses. Carly, feeling belittled, decides to use her overnight viral video audience to build a new web show called iCarly, where she says we can do whatever we want and we can say whatever we want. Carly showcases the kids she thought were talented on the iCarly web show, and it is a mega success. Carly is an overnight celebrity, a rebel, with a voice, a hero to those at her school. iCarly does a fantastic job at introducing our characters and their dynamics. The good girl paired with the bad girl sets up for many future conflicts and situations. The boy next door in love with the girl next door creates a tension that is sure to resurface. The bad girl makes sure to let the boy next door know his place, teasing him and pushing him around and telling him the girl next door will never love him back. All this paired with the good girl's older brother, the wild card, which will add the randomness needed to keep things unexpected. Masterful character introduction. Next, let's talk about Drake and Josh. In the opening scene, we get a split screen with each of the main characters, Drake and Josh, talking to the audience directly. Drake is not doing his homework, Josh is. Drake is skeptical about Josh is not. Drake is used to talking to girls, Josh is not. They are presented as polar opposites. Following this, in our first real scene, we have 5 lead characters all talking in the living room together. Walter, Josh's very typical dad, and Audrey, Drake's mom, announce to the boys and Megan, Drake's sister, that they are getting married. Drake is in distress and Josh is overjoyed. We are immediately presented with a conflict. Drake must now share his room with Josh, who he is skeptical of, and rightfully so, as Josh is running around acting a little bit like the neighbor's kid, like, the meme. Drake needs some space, so he decides he's going to go out and throw some hoops, but Mom and Stepdad suggest Josh could join. Drake agrees, but upon walking back into his room, he finds Josh in a dress. Turns out Josh is Miss Nancy, a secret advice-giving helper in the school paper. Drake, after laughing, immediately uses this information to blackmail Josh. Twice. This blackmail ends up getting Josh into some major trouble after Josh challenges him to a fight. The stepbrothers work together to overcome this, but fail. Josh calls Drake the worst stepbrother ever. However, Drake wants to help Josh, and does. By the end of the episode, they've accepted each other as brothers. We also learn that Megan, Drake's little sister, loves to see her brothers in agony, and she pulls a hot sauce prank on them. After the pilot, we learn about two stepbrothers, our main characters, and how they're quite different. One being a selfish, lazy player who has a heart when he wants to, and the other being an innocent, slightly odd kid with a big heart. They come off as opposites, and this sets up for a surely difficult roommate experience. However, their comedic chemistry is stellar. However, honestly, this introduction to our characters in the pilot feels off, rushed, and generally could have been executed better. Now, moving on, let's talk about Zoey 101. We meet our main character in Scene 1, Zoey Brooks, with her father and her brother Dustin, about to arrive at PCA. The conversations before arriving are clear, and explain how starting this year, PCA will allow boys and girls at the school rather than just boys. Zoey seems relaxed, and she gives a confident aura. This sets up and foreshadows Zoey's initial role at this school. Upon arriving in Scene 2, we meet Chase, who crashes his bike when catching the first glimpse of Zoey. They talk, and Zoey makes her first friend. Chase is a likable kid who stumbles on his words when first talking to Zoey. He's clearly nervous. In the following scenes, we meet Zoey's roommates, Nicole and Dana, who are complete opposites, with Nicole being a typically girly girl and Dana being a grumpy tomboy. We quickly, as viewers, are put into Zoey's shoes and get to experience that new school feeling. It is a good way to meet new characters, a point of view experience. In the next scene, Zoey learns that the school is holding basketball tryouts, and she decides to learn more. That's where we meet Logan, a jock who laughs at the prospect of girls trying out for the boys' team. Zoey challenges Logan to a boys versus girl basketball game. We learn about Zoey's strong opinions, leadership skills, and confidence and determination as she rallies together a girls' team. When time comes for the game, the girls are getting crushed, and all the girls other than Zoey are ready to give up. Zoey even gets punched and has a bloody nose, but that doesn't faze her. This inspires Dana to join the team, who gains respect for Zoey. The girls nearly beat the boys, but this is not as important as the girls have gained everyone's respect at the school as they get cheered on, and the coach even offers them a spot on the team. In this pilot, we learn of a girl, our main character, who has fire and won't stand on the sidelines, a natural leader. She gains friends including a nice boy who is immediately impressed by her, two roommates who respect her, and an adversary. We feel like we are part of the school as we walk in the shoes of Zoey, and as the episode ends, we are excited for Zoey's next day at PCA. A good way of introducing our characters, although retrospectively, I thought it was a little weird how Michael isn't really properly introduced in the first episode. Lastly, let's meet Tori and the rest of the gang at Hollywood Arts in Victorious. Tori, our main character, is introduced as an ordinary girl, who is not necessarily shy, but she does not really believe that she is more than ordinary. We are then introduced to her sister Trina, who believes she is more than she really is, not humble and not super talented, as well as rude. Trina is practicing for her big singing showcase, and she's aided by Andre, who walks in the first scene. Andre is naturally talented, friendly, and an excellent songwriter. Tori sees this, Trina does not. They practice together. When it comes time for the big showcase, Trina cannot perform, and the only one who can replace her is Tori. Tori says no, but she's literally dragged on stage by Andre. Tori and Andre perform their own rendition of the song, and Tori stuns the audience. She still doesn't believe in herself despite the amazing reception. She's invited to try going to Hollywood Arts, and she reluctantly agrees. In the next scenes, we learn of Andre's friend group, which Tori becomes involved with, which include the odd ventriloquist kid, Robbie, the pretty boy, Beck, the rebel bad girl, Jade, and the wild card crazy girl, Kat. Tori feels out of place. We have our first conflict before class starts. Tori accidentally spills coffee on Beck and helps wipe him down. We then find out Jade is dating Beck, and she becomes angry with Tori. Class starts and we're introduced to an even crazier character in the teacher Psychowitz, who challenges them to do improv. Jade invites Tori on stage and humiliates her. Tori is now sure she does not belong and she wants to go back to Ordinary. Andre assures her that she belongs here, saying that she is super talented and saying Ordinary is boring. This doesn't convince Tori to stay at the school, but however, when Tori's selfish, condescending sister tells Tori she belongs and that she is talented, she is convinced. The next day at school, Tori comes with a fire. A new improv session is led by Tori in class this time, and she invites Jade and Beck on stage. She beats Jade at the improv game and is left alone with Beck, whom she cleverly gets kissed by. She exclaims that she loves the school, and the episode ends. Tori gains her wings, her confidence, and finds her place at the school. In this pilot, we have a self-labeled ordinary girl who finds her inner confidence and along the way gains some talented friends, and an exciting new setting and a scary new enemy, which she confronts successfully. We are left wondering what chaos will ensue the next day at Hollywood Arts. Now, we have been introduced to our characters in each of the 4 shows we're exploring. Let's compare the different approaches and dynamics between our characters in each show. First of all, what are the similarities and differences in our main characters? One similarity between Carly, Zoey, and Tori is that they are all girls that prove themselves and gain the respect of those around them in the first episode. They also all have rebellious natures. Perhaps most similar are Carly and Zoey, who fight for justice for those belittled, whether it be the girls at PCA or the neglected talent show kids. In this way, these 3 main characters are quite similar, and these 3 pilots do similar things with the main character in the first episode. The real outlier here is Drake and Josh, which sets itself up as more of a reality TV show focusing on 2 brothers, and they are not trying to prove themselves to a large audience, but rather to themselves and each other. Their relationship is front and center, and it is forced by a marriage, so it does not come naturally. The goal of the episode is to create that acceptance of brothership to establish a partnership going forward. Now, let's move on. What kind of similarities are introduced in regards to character conflicts in the pilots between the 4 shows? iCarly focuses on friendship and the compromises that we make to make them work. Carly takes the fall for Sam, Sam tolerates Freddie for Carly, Freddie accepts the platonic nature of his friendship with Carly, and that's a great starting point for future conflicts and character dynamics. Drake and Josh focuses on family and public image. Accepting family is an interesting topic, especially for 2 brothers who are polar opposites. They can learn from each other. Josh can learn from Drake's confidence and cunning, and Drake can learn from Josh's friendliness, heart, and hard work. The relationship between the 2 brothers will be riddled with conflict naturally. Zoey 101 focuses on equality and social prejudice. The main conflict is girls arriving at the school, which is originally meant just for boys. We can see how this scenario creates conflict as, for example, Logan's prejudice towards the girls and Dustin's fear of supporting the girls. With such a young cast, conflicts occur naturally and we have a vast pool of different characters, some of which we have already witnessed being quite opinionated. Victorious focuses on boundaries, confidence, and self-esteem. The main conflict is a girl with herself. She must convince herself she is good enough. Figuring out boundaries in a new setting like Hollywood Arts can be tricky. We can see every character might seem confident, which Tori is not initially, but there are insecurities behind their personas. Robbie hides behind his puppet. Jade is jealous of any girl near her boyfriend, again, self-esteem. Kat reacts greatly to any comment related to her. Andre might not have the confidence to perform his own songs by himself. Trina acts above others by taking on a rude persona. And Beck keeps his options open as he does not know if Jade really likes him. Each show establishes conflict and social dynamics clearly in the pilot. We've now talked about our characters, but there's much more to a pilot and writing a scenario. But we'll have to save that for part 2, where we'll talk about setting and scene layout and plot. So subscribe for part 2 coming soon. I'd like to hear your thoughts, so sound off in the comments, but for now, that's been the Third Wind channel. I'll see you guys very soon with a new video tomorrow.